That's all that mattered. All right, so this is from intrepid viewer Jacob Lewis. And he just put this out there. Of course, sometime in the next century when the ACC grant of rights is up and the necromancers and zombies walk the earth, if the ACC were to fold, he put the teams in the ACC into these conferences. He said Big Ten would be Syracuse, BC, Duke, and Virginia. That FSU, Clemson, Miami, and UNC would go to the ACC. The Big 12 would take NC State, Pitt, Virginia Tech, and Wake. The Georgia Tech of the SEC or the Big 10. And Louisville would be the SEC or the Big 12. Now, I would tell you that Georgia Tech probably fits the Big 12 based on the size of their school and some of the other things, because they're very much like Wake Forest. Maybe a little more prestigious in certain realms of the academic world, but, smaller private school. But, it isn't a major metropolitan area. Louisville, I would think, would absolutely be in the Big 12. But do you want to put that up there again so Craig can see it? And your thoughts on this? I also don't think UNC would be in the SEC. I think they would wind up in the Big 10.
Yeah, it's fun that you're fantasy booking, and I refer to it that way often because it's kind of what it is. It's what everybody's doing. Same way you dream up the screenplay that you would write, or whatever. But how you'd run the NFL if you were in charge, or you're the college football commissioner. There's plenty of people that have taken on that moniker, and have talked about like what they would do. But yeah, just having a little fun. I think Syracuse is a no-go in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I think you've already got Rutgers sort of eating up some of your NYC there, and I know there's been opportunities there previously. Now, I will say I don't know, to be sure, how the conferences view these teams, but just kind of going as best I can off history and just present day and all of that, I don't know that Syracuse would really be a pull. I don't know about Boston College. I'm not sure about that one.
So here's another thing you have to consider in this. This is him putting everybody into a conference.
Yeah.
But if the ACC folds, which I would assume it would only do if other conferences do as well because we're going to a Super League. That's the scenario in my head. You also have to allow for some of these teams to be kind of in the wilderness.
Yeah, and I don't know, for example, how these schools line up as far as AAU and all of those types of things, because often when we get into the realignment talk, we get into the swamp of
Tier 1.
Yeah, we get in all these little buzz terms, and they're important. Don't get me wrong, they matter, but it just gets very convoluted and very confusing to know.
And as it goes on, I don't think it's gonna matter because it's gonna be about good on good.
But we know that you do have to, for the Big Ten, you have to be AAU, and I don't know if all these teams are. Just off the top of my head, I haven't studied that closely. But yeah, I'd say no on Syracuse. I think they might just be a team that's out there in the wilderness. Unfortunately for them, BC, I don't really know. I don't know if there's a pull there for
really small private school.
Yeah, for a Boston school. Duke is interesting. I don't know about Big Ten, though. That's just a little bit...
See, I just,
But, I can see, but that's where it goes into, the parts of this that I don't know for sure as far as certifications and endowment and all of those those are what would answer this question for me, and I don't know those exactly for Duke and how the Big Ten views that and vice versa, so that one's a little puzzling to me one way or the other, but I'd lean no, quite frankly, just because... I don't know that they bring enough of a wallop that you're gaining as the Big Ten because you've got Duke basketball and academics.
Yeah.
So I'd say I don't think that's big enough for the Big Ten.
No. What I will say there, and you can take it down now, Garrett. But
I'm gonna need that again.
Yeah, you need it again. Yeah. I should have printed it for you.
It's fine. If you want to put it up for a second, I'll write it down as fast as I can
here,
while Paul talks.
Yeah. But here's what I do think. I will tell you that Virginia and UNC are great fits in the Big Ten. They're great fits in the Big Ten. That FSU, Clemson, and Miami would do really well in the SEC. Miami and they could the Big 12 and Louisville could probably fit in the SEC as well, or the Big 12. They're the one to me that can kind of go either spot. But I do think that he kind of nailed the Big 12 schools a little bit, because NC State, Pitt, Virginia Tech, and Wake all kind of fit. And if that all went down, the Big 12, for lack of a better term, is like the Lost Boys, not the vampires, Peter Pan's Lost Boys, where they're all better together, but they're all good, but they're not quite big enough for anybody else to really crave them, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, they're better as a unit, as a commune, going all together, as opposed to, you know, the SEC, which is about to be the conference of, you know, high-dollar brands.
Big 12 is the island of misfit toys, is what they are. So with the Big Ten, I'd say, because I've got it written down now, I'd say no. I think Virginia would probably be the most interesting one, just because academically, footprint-wise, state school, you know, all those kind of really important factors that aren't even all that related to athletics. I think that they, you know, and then obviously they have some pretty good athletics as well. I mean, basketball in particular is, you know, thrived here of late. So I could see Virginia out of that Big Ten group. I don't really see the others, though, just for the purpose of this exercise. Because, too, I think that if the Big Ten, and again, this is fantasy booking, but if they were to go the route of adding teams, I think they're going for much bigger fish than Syracuse, BC, Duke. You know, that's not where they're going if they're trying to.
They already did that with Rutgers.
Yeah, like, I mean, they're trying to get more bang for their buck than that. So I don't really see those for the Big Ten. Maybe Virginia. SEC-wise, I mean, those all just kind of going in order here. I mean, FSU, Clemson, Miami, UNC. Do you think FSU is more of an SEC school than a Big Ten school?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, like, absolutely.
Yeah. Academics-wise. And
you know, like, it would, like, look, it's just as an alum and a fan.
But what about the Gators? Are they down with that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Well, if I'm
the Aggies and Longhorns, it didn't matter, I guess.
Well, it didn't matter. It didn't matter to everybody but A&M. So if I'm A&M and it comes down to we're going to add Florida State and Florida says no, I'll be like, oh, really?
Yeah, right.
Really? Like, I'll come over there and kick you in your jorts.
Right,
all right?
Yeah.
I'll rip the mullet off the back of your head. I am not going to let you put our big rival in and not yours, you know? So, yeah, I don't think so. There's a good point in the chat room. Miami is a weird one in here, right? Miami almost would be kind of an outsider. They're more like USC than anybody else. So that would make sense, especially if the Big Ten's trying to get down into Florida, and it puts them in a gigantic, huge media market in Miami, which is two things that they like. But they would have to do a lot of things to, I think, get that, you know, to get that invite, because their time is, I mean, nobody's time has really come and gone necessarily. It's come. It's not there anymore. It's out in the wilderness. It just depends. Sports are cyclical, but they're trying to do a lot of different things to bring themselves into the modern. So I don't know. I mean, like, they would fit in the SEC, but the point of, like, having 3 Florida schools in the SEC probably doesn't.
I don't think you really need that. That's watering it down a little bit. Yeah. So I think FSU Clemson would make perfect sense. That would be, I mean, North Carolina would make great sense. North Carolina seems like you could put them in the SEC or the Big Ten category, and they'd probably be A-okay either way. So maybe with that Big Ten column, you're looking at Virginia, North Carolina instead of the 4 that he listed. But yeah, SEC, I mean, FSU seems like it'd be a no-brainer, other than just getting the Gators approval, or we're not still, like we mentioned with the Aggies and Longhorns, don't have to have it. But
if you told me, look, I think the problem, especially for FSU and Clemson, and you can maybe throw Miami in this a little bit as well, because their fans grew up on, especially when they were in the Big East and FSU was an independent, like, you know, or Miami was independent before they were in the Big East, you know, all that. Their schedule was just unbelievable. You know, FSU's fans that are older than me grew up on, and even I did before they joined the ACC, and I wasn't even quite a fan there until I went to school there as much. But, you know, like, they would play Nebraska and Michigan and all these teams in the same, like, Miami would play Penn State, Nebraska, and, you know, Oklahoma all in the same year.
So like the Notre Dame schedule?
Yeah, they had the Notre Dame schedule. So what the ACC does for them as far as brands matching up, like, you know, so what? They're going to play Syracuse. And I'm not trying to knock Syracuse, but that doesn't excite you as much as being in the SEC and playing that, or potentially being in the Big Ten and playing Ohio State and Michigan, you know?
Yeah.
So that's where I think, especially FSU is leaning in that they, and Clemson, they know that they're going to be the big brand every week of the ACC, whereas until they play each other, or they play Miami, or, you know, Louisville or North Carolina, those games are not like big, huge, recognizable brands all the time, which is where things are going. So that's why I think this is even, of course, FSU brought it up, and Clemson and everybody else kind of followed suit that wants to have that unequal revenue share, but that's what they're trying to create, you know?
super schedules or whatever.
Yeah, better schedules. And all that.
I mean, that's what the TV networks would love.
Yeah.
They're the ones really, I think all about that part of it. But yeah, I mean, just for the purpose of this exercise, I could definitely see FSU, Clemson, possibly UNC. Miami's a little bit more of a wild card. Big 12 wise, I mean, I think anybody's on the table. I just think that I don't know that they are really going to want to like reach down, so to speak, any more than they already have. And I don't mean that as an insult, but like I don't think you're just going and grabbing Memphis or Boise State or whatever, unless there's a play around those. Like if you are expanding out west, like totally expanding out west, then you add more schools. Then but Boise State gets caught up in that potentially, or one of the others that have always been mentioned, Colorado State's or someone like that. But I think pretty much anything that's on par, Power 5 wise, and again, this is very unlikely, but yeah, if something fractured and fell apart, then they've made it very clear they're going to be there for the taking. They're going to be there for land grabs and ready to roll. So, yeah, I think you mentioned NC State, Pitt, VT, Wake. I mean, I think they'd all be under heavy consideration, if not no-brainer ads. Maybe you spend a little more time on, like, do we need Wake Forest? Like, do we – but then again, they fit some of the other schools in a like the private school. There's a gang of private schools already in the conference. So, who knows there. Georgia Tech, they've already been in the SEC. They're a former SEC school, but Big Ten seems like I feel like that would be a pretty smart move. Atlanta and all that, that'd definitely be a possibility there. And then Louisville, absolutely. I don't know about the SEC, but maybe I'm just reading that wrong. But Big 12 for sure. Yeah, I think the Big 12 probably Big 12 still regrets that they didn't land Louisville when they had the opportunity.
Yeah, I think Louisville might regret it. Like
maybe, yeah.
And look, Louisville, especially now, like I think you've got a couple schools. Like Louisville's a basketball school, right? It's a great basketball school. That national titles there in Louisville. So yeah, I would think that again. Like I think about what I believe to be the future of the Big 12, where you're going to have, Gonzaga and Kansas playing and Houston and Baylor on a big Monday. And like, if you throw a school like Louisville in there, like, whoo,
yeah,
like it just adds to that basketball brand even much more, even though I know Louisville they're ready to burn the building down. They were so bad this year, but they love basketball there. I mean, it's a great sports school.
They'd fit in, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if the Big 12 could get them, I'm sure they'd love to have them. But obviously, they're not available at the moment. But yeah, I think that'd be one they'd jump all over if they had their picks.
Yeah. By the way, we have one of our listeners, viewers, Chad Haynes, big Louisville fan, sends me emails and stuff all the time, DMs and all that. And he was very excited for the potential that we could show up in Louisville. And then, about halfway through the second half, I'm like, hey, buddy, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll be alive eating hot browns at any Louisville sports bar anytime soon. So hopefully one day, but it was not going to be this week.
We'll let you know. We'd love to.
Yeah. Look, we would love to go anywhere. Like there's not many places that we wouldn't love to go. I think that the future of this show and this channel hopefully gets to the point where we can hop around and go to cool games and cool places that we've never been before, especially as the Big 12 now proliferates. Yeah,
there's a lot of logistics involved. That's the thing. So yeah, I mean, I think that's on the docket at some point. But exactly how and when and all that, no idea. But yeah, Louisville would definitely be a fun little stop to go and hang out.
And do you know how you help us with that? Like and subscribe.
Yeah, hit that like, smash that like button.
Get those subs up and those likes and the views. That's how it happens here. Tell all your friends on the internet about it. But I think any of this like ACC reshuffling or any reshuffling really for them especially only happens when the whole thing gets, they have the big conversation of, okay, here's been the master plan the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, if there is such a thing, I mean, I definitely think there is for, a couple of parties involved, or at least if you look at the maneuvering that's gone on, I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten have been a few steps ahead of everybody, which is fitting because they're a few steps ahead in most categories, especially financially, viewers, those types of things. But it does, appear that there could be some more cataclysmic events in college sports' future. I think until they nail down this whole idea of trying to dig their heels in the sand and fight NIL or fight for NIL legislation, all that, the longer that goes on, the longer they're delaying the inevitable. And then when it finally just the dam breaks, I do think that is going to perhaps cause a lot of chaos that, has kind of been referred to or thought about. That just seems like that would be something that really creates the haves and the have-nots, and not like the boogeyman that we talk about, like, oh God, college football's dying or anything. But no, if you suddenly just say, you throw your hands up and go, all right, we're never getting NIL legislation like that's going to do it the way that we want to do it, back to where it's the schools still have this some amount of control. That just doesn't seem like it's anywhere near possible, quite frankly, at this point. Like, it's inevitable that there's going to have to be a CBA or something along those lines, and just simply not everyone's going to be able to do that, and certainly not going to be able to do it at the same level. I mean, we already see the differences in just the money being brought in and all of that. So, if that happens, then that would be one interesting ride. But I don't think we're just quite there yet. But yeah, it would create some interesting branches, that's for sure.
Absolutely. When we come back, Tim Fitzgerald